Who is the greatest team of all time? We've asked this question for decades, and we've heard so many different answers. No matter what your opinion is, we can all agree that there is no definitive answer. It's all based on what your criteria is, on how you value greatness. For this video, there is no right or wrong answer. I've been making videos for over 5 years, and there are 9 teams who have been called the greatest the most. With the help of my friends at CLNS NBA History Storytellers, we're going to make the case for each one. I would love to hear everyone's pick in the comments. We start with the one I hear the most, the 1996 Chicago Bulls. From start to finish, they had the greatest and most dominant season of all time. Here are the facts about what this team accomplished. They had the best combined regular season and postseason record in NBA history. They went 87-13. They had a 13.4 net rating, which is the all-time record. They had the second most wins for the regular season. They also have the second highest simple rating system. They had the fourth highest margin of victory. They had a point differential of 1,004 points. They are only the second team in the modern era, or since the merger, to have a point differential of at least 1,000 points. Yet somehow, we can still make the argument that they could have had an even more legendary season. Before the Bulls' 18-game winning streak, they had won 13 straight before a loss to the Pacers ended it. Without that loss, they could have had a 32-game winning streak. So how would having a 75-7 record along with a 30-game winning streak sound to you? That was the ceiling of this team. You don't accomplish all of that if your team has any glaring weaknesses. This team had none. They were legendary in both offense and defense. Everything started with Michael Jordan, who was hell-bent in proving all his doubters wrong. He reinvented his game and was an absolute force in the post. The league shifted into a more physical and defensive-oriented league. He made the necessary adjustments, and he remained the most efficient volume scorer in the league. But there were much more than the greatness of Jordan. Portland's GM said it best when he said at the time, "They really play the team concept. They make the extra pass. They understand where they want to be on the court and what kind of spacing they want." End of quote. They were ahead of their time, and they ran the triangle offense to perfection. Their defense, however, was their biggest strength. They're only one of 5 teams that have 3 players selected to the All-NBA Defensive First Team for one season. Michael and Scottie were always one of the top individual defenders, but adding Dennis Rodman is what put them over the top. Not only was he one of the greatest rebounders ever, but he was also a smart, mesmerizing defender who could guard anyone. And Ron Harper was the X factor. He was an oversized point guard who was an incredibly tough individual defender. Their defense was the key to it all. So even when they struggled on offense, they would just smother you on the other end. That explains why they had a dominant 15-3 record in the playoffs. They beat their opponents by an average margin of 10.5 points, which is the 9th highest mark. It's the greatest resume for an all-time great team. 10 years prior, another team made an incredible case for themselves, the 1986 Boston Celtics. Putting the numbers aside, their game was among the most beautiful to watch. They moved the ball exceptionally well and were able to create easy baskets. Whether it was passing to cutters or open outside shots, they had so many ways to beat you. Everyone was unselfish. Everyone was looking for the extra pass. That was the foundation of their historically dominant season. But now we get to the numbers. The 80s are considered the golden era. It was a time where the talent was incredibly stacked. That's why you won't find any teams from the 80s among the top 10 for the highest margin of victory. However, they did post the most wins, margin of victory, and simple rating system of the entire decade. On top of that, they only lost once at home for the regular season and playoffs. When you have a player like Larry Bird at the peak of his powers, this shouldn't be surprising. Their historic season is all a part of his legacy. Their personality came from him. His unselfishness was contagious. They played the right way because that's how their leader played. From an individual standpoint, there were many people who were seriously considering if he was the greatest player of all time. That's how high his stock was at the time. If that's not enough, they had the offensive brilliance of Kevin McHale, the legendary two-way ability of Dennis Johnson, a Hall of Fame talent in Robert Parrish, and so many great role players. But the true difference maker was Bill Walton. Who better to explain to us his impact than Bob Ryan?
Bill Walton was the unusual 6th man in NBA history because no team in the history of this league has ever brought a 7-footer off the bench to alter games in the manner that Bill Walton did. He's the greatest this backup, quote unquote, backup center the league has ever known in that season of 85, 86, giving the Celtics the greatest 1-2 center punch in the history of the game. When he would come in the game, and if it happened to be against the backup center, he and Larry almost teased him. It was almost like they were playing a private game of their own. They ran a give and go better than it's been run in this league ever.
They were also great on defense. The numbers suggest that they were the best in the league. They finished first in defensive rating and opponent's field goal percentage. With all the size they had and DJ holding down the perimeter, it's no wonder they were so tough to score on. This was another team that had no weaknesses. Unsurprisingly, they went 15-3 in the playoffs. They also posted a 10.3 margin of victory in the playoffs, which is the 10th highest mark ever. They were equally dominant in the playoffs as they were in the regular season. Their play style, talent, and statistical resume gives them a strong case for the top spot. But of course, Magic Johnson and the Lakers would like to give their rebuttal. The 1987 Lakers were being described as cosmic. There was no better way to describe their offense. The LA Times said, when the Lakers set up, grind it out, they're tough, almost unbeatable. When they run, they're cosmic. End of quote. The main reason for their dominance was the fact that Magic Johnson had arguably the greatest individual season by a point guard. He focused more on scoring, and he proceeded to finish in the top 10 in scoring while leading the league in assists. For those who were still questioning his ability to come through in the playoffs, he shut everyone up for good. The way he controlled the offense and enforced his will was sensational. In the finals against the Boston Celtics, he converted on one of the biggest shots in league history. Michael Cooper of CLNS described it best.
Magic was determined to score that only because of everything that had gone on in Boston. But if you look at that play, Kareem's wide open. All he had to do was dump that thing to Kareem and it would have been a score. But
or if he missed
the Magic Johnson's breakthrough at the Garden.
Did you know it was in?
Yeah. I knew it was going in. He was like, Coop, get the ball to me. Well, of course I'm coming to you. You got point guard. But did I know he was going to make that shot when he went across the key? Because he had been practicing that shot like about 2-3 weeks before in practice. He never really did it a lot, but he just kind of like would practice that shot. And what a time to put it on him.
On top of that, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was still one of the best post-up players in the game, even at the age of 39. Then there was James Worthy, who nearly shot 60% from the field in the playoffs while averaging 23.6 points per game. Then there was Byron Scott and Michael Cooper, who helped spread the floor with their dead-eye shooting. Byron Scott averaged 44% from the three in the regular season, and Cooper averaged 49% in the playoffs. This explains perfectly why they held the record for the highest offensive rating for a single season for 32 straight years. It wasn't until 2019 when someone finally broke it. They were and are still the standard if you want to have a historically great offense. Scoring was never the issue with this team. Some have questioned their defensive abilities, but we can't say that for this season. The numbers say that they were a top 10 defensive team. They posted the 6th lowest opponent's field goal percentage, and they had the 7th best defensive rating. Let's not forget that Michael Cooper won the Defensive Player of the Year. Then Michael Thompson and James Worthy were both outstanding defenders. This played a role in their historical dominance. In the playoffs, they had a 15-3 record. They posted an 11.4 margin of victory, which is the 8th highest mark. They also averaged 120.6 points per game, which is the 5th highest mark from a team that at least reached the finals. Their case is as good as anyone's, especially if you care more about offense. I'm certainly not going to be the one to bet on a team led by Magic Johnson. We also want to look at the great teams of the 21st century. This one is a personal favorite. The 2001 Lakers has a very intriguing case of being known as the greatest team of all time. In the regular season, their performances and numbers were good, but nothing really stood out. Injuries and locker room drama prevented them from duplicating the regular season success from the previous year. If they wanted to be known as the greatest team ever, they needed to completely wipe out their competition in the playoffs. They exceeded all expectations and went on a run that truly blew everyone away. They were only one overtime defeat away from being the only team to go undefeated in the playoffs. They went 15-1. They had the 4th highest margin of victory ever. They beat their opponents by a margin of 12.8 points. The biggest factor that we have to consider was the level of competition. Each of their opponents won at least 50 games during the regular season. For comparison, none of the three teams that went 15-2 in the playoffs, nor the 2017 Golden State Warriors, had a first-round opponent who finished more than 2 games over 500. That right there is a difference. Their biggest strength was the 1-2 punch of Shaq and Kobe. This was unquestionably the greatest playoff run by a duo that we've ever seen. They nearly became the only pair of teammates to average over 30 points per game for the playoffs. Rick Adelman said it best after their second round sweep. They have 2 great players playing at the top of their games, and if you get the slightest bit preoccupied with stopping one, the other will make you pay dearly. End of quote. How crazy is it that Shaq went 2 straight games of scoring over 40 points and grabbing over 20 rebounds? Shortly after that, Kobe went for 48 points on 52% shooting. Then he went for 45 points on 54% shooting in the very next game. How on earth is anyone supposed to stop that? But the X factor was Derek Fisher. Imagine giving Shaq and Kobe a third star. For a short period, that's exactly what they had. For the first 3 rounds of the playoffs, he made 25 of 49 3-point attempts while committing only 6 turnovers. He was averaging 15 points per game on 50% shooting. We also don't want to forget about their defense, which was always their most underrated trait. In the conference finals, they faced a Spurs team that had the best record in the NBA. They held them to 15 points below their regular season average and were contained to 38% shooting. In the playoffs, they were the closest thing to perfection. If you care about playoff dominance and star power, then they have a very interesting case for being the GOAT team. The most modern team to insert themselves in the conversation is the 2017 Golden State Warriors. It's easy to explain why they deserve to be among the top of the list. It's their statistical resume, the number of all-star level players on the team, and it's their ability to beat you in so many different ways. You have 2 of the greatest and most transcendent offensive talents ever, Steph Curry and Kevin Durant. You have arguably the greatest shooter of all time in Klay Thompson. They had a player that won the Defensive Player of the Year that season in Draymond Green. And to put it all together, they had Andre Iguodala, who was a versatile and exceptional 2-way player. The talent that they had was overwhelming, but it was the way they played together that made them unstoppable. Greg Popovich went as far as to say that no team is more unselfish in finding the open man. The fact that all these pieces were able to fit together so seamlessly helped them reach a level of dominance that we may never see again. They currently have the 5th highest margin of victory and simple rating system for a single season. Although winning 67 games is impressive, you can make the case they still underachieved. KD missed 20 games and they still went 16-4 without him. If he was fully healthy, who's to say that they couldn't win 70 games? Now what truly puts this team over the top is their historical playoff performance. Golden State became the first team to start 15-0 in the playoffs, and their 15 straight wins were the most consecutive postseason wins in league history. They have the best playoff record. They went 16-1. They also posted an average margin of victory of 13.5 points, which is the 3rd highest mark. Watching them play in real time, it seemed unfair. They were just too good. When you get the first and only unanimous MVP, when you give a team that won 73 games a player like Kevin Durant, yeah, it's no wonder we all felt that way. Steve Kerr said it best when he mentioned that they played the highest level of basketball he has ever seen. Whether we like it or not, the numbers and talent that they possessed makes that a fair statement. Speaking of playoff dominance, we transition to the obvious next team. The 1983 Philadelphia 76ers have won the greatest start to finish seasons ever. In the previous 6 years, they reached the finals 3 times. They had the best record during that stretch as well. They were the classic team that was one piece away. They got that piece they were missing when they acquired Moses Malone. Now, this team possessed the 2 players that won the last 2 MVP awards. His impact was felt right away. He was the ultimate rim protector. He is considered by many as the greatest rebounder. He also proved that he could make the quick outlet pass that triggered the running game. They went from a good fast break offense to an exceptional one. Then there was Julius Erving, who was still among the top individual talents in the game. He had to make some adjustments in order to play alongside his new star teammate. Bob Ryan explained perfectly what he was able to do.
And I tell you, in '82, when they beat the Celtics in Game 7, after they had lost Game 7 in '81, and the Celtics were highly favored to win that game in Boston in '82, Larry, he had some killer threes, so he got to be a better shooter. And guess what, gang? He worked on it. He didn't settle on his talent, and by talent, running, jumping, reflexes, etc., but not the mastery of the game. He was determined not to be one of those guys. He wanted to be a full, complete player, and he was.
On top of that, both Andrew Toney and Maurice Cheeks joined the star duo in the All-Star game. Then Bobby Jones, Mo Cheeks, and Moses were selected to the All-NBA First Team Defense, and Bobby Jones won the first ever Sixth Man of the Year award. There was simply no team that could match up with all the talent they had. They had so much confidence that Moses was sure they would go faux in the playoffs. He was only off by one game. They went 12-1 in the postseason. That's the third time a team lost once in the playoffs on the road to a championship. Their finals performance was their most impressive stretch. Magic Johnson has only been swept once in his career, and this was the only time he experienced such a defeat while playing every game of the series. It's true that Lakers were suffering through some injuries, but he had Kareem by his side the entire time. The fact that they couldn't pull out one win speaks volumes. There's truly nothing negative that you could say about their talent or resume, and that's why I would never question anyone who believes they're the greatest team ever. We also don't want to forget the great teams of the pre-merger. The one that stands out the most is the 1972 Lakers. We all know what they're known for. It's winning 33 straight games. As amazing as that winning streak is, it's somehow enormously undersold. We're talking about going undefeated for 2 full months, which included winning 16 straight road games. It's crazy that it's been 54 years and no one has still been able to top it. But then you have the following statistics. They had the second highest margin of victory, they are tied for the third most wins, and they had the fourth highest simple rating system. What made this all possible was the fact that Jerry West and Wilt Chamberlain were willing to adjust from their preferred style of play. Jerry was asked to play the traditional point guard role. The result was that he led the league in assists while averaging over 25 points per game. Then we have what Wilt Chamberlain did.
And a coach got to him that had never gotten to him before. Bill Sharman comes in and invents the morning shoot around. And what? He invented the morning shoot around. He's got to persuade Wilt. That wasn't Wilt. Wilt would get up at 11 o'clock, Seriously. He persuaded Wilt to go along with the program, which people were amazed. And Wilt decided to dedicate himself to leading the league and not just being a good beater, shooting percentage. How do you do that? Well, you don't take shots you can't make. And pretty much all Wilt wanted to do from then on were finger rolls and tips and dunks. And he cut his shot percentage way down. And he also wanted to start a fast break and threw outlet passes, which he had never thrown. So that 71-72 Lakers, they won the 33 straight games from December to January, and we're one of the great teams, and they won 68 games, one of the great teams in NBA history, 69. Yeah, and Wilt was instrumental in that.
But this team was much more than the greatness of this duo. Gail Goodrich was their leading scorer. People forget that he's a 5-time All-Star and a Hall of Famer. Power forward Happy Hairston was a great compliment to Wilt and was a double-double machine. But the biggest X factor was Jim McMillan. He replaced Elgin Baylor in the starting lineup after he retired in the beginning of the season. It's no coincidence that they started a 33-game winning streak immediately after. His youth, energy, and ability to go up and down the court allowed them to have the best offense in the league. This star-studded group was able to continue their winning ways in the playoffs. Their 12-3 postseason record indicates that they pretty much had their way against their opponents. Their most impressive playoff series victory came in the conference finals when they faced the defending champions, Milwaukee Bucks. They had a 63-19 record, and they were just as good as the previous year. They were evenly matched, but it was their defense that proved to be the difference maker. Wilt contained Kareem to 46% shooting, 11% less than his regular season average, and they did a great job of limiting Oscar Robertson. He averaged 36% for the series. You can't deny the numbers and talent of this team. If you appreciate the history of the game, then I wouldn't blame you for picking this team as the greatest. In the previous year, there was a team that was equally as great. The 1971 Milwaukee Bucks might have the best statistical resume out of anyone. Here's what they have going for them. They had the second highest simple rating system. They had the third highest margin of victory. They are one of 5 teams that had a winning streak of over 20 games. Here's another interesting record. They were the only team in the league to average over 50% until the 1977-78 season. They set a new standard when it comes to efficiency and moving the ball around. In the center of it all, it was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. In just his second season, he was already the MVP. He was a big reason for their overall efficiency. He shot 58% from the field while averaging 31.7 points and pulling down 16 rebounds per game. I admit that it's easy to point to his numbers and just give him the credit for their greatness, but that wouldn't be factual. They made a huge acquisition in the offseason. They received the greatest point guard of the pre-merger, Oscar Robertson. Did you know that they had 10 players who were under 25 years old? According to Sports Illustrated, he accelerated the maturing process of his young teammates. He was more than willing to play behind Kareem, and he focused on being the game's best floor general. He created so many easy shots for his teammates. He played a big role in their supremely efficient offense. We also don't want to forget about the other great players. Bob Dandridge was very versatile and one of the better two-way players of his time. John McLaughlin was one of the best shooters in the league, and he helped spread the floor. Then there was Greg Smith, who was an energetic player and a fantastic rebounder. This team was much more than the greatness of Kareem and Oscar. As great as their regular season was, they raised their level of play in the playoffs. They posted a margin of victory of 14.5 points. That is the second highest in league history. They also had a 12-2 record. Only one of their victories were by single digits. When you're putting up those kind of numbers, then you have every right to call yourself the greatest team ever. We have one last team to talk about. Honestly, could have gone with a few options, and they're all worthy. But I'm here to cater to my audience, and I know there are many who firmly believe that the 1992 Chicago Bulls should hold that title. We can't deny that they have a very intriguing case. They're only one of 13 teams to have a margin of victory and simple rating system of 10 or higher. Did you know that they're only 0.1 behind the 1987 Lakers in offensive rating? That means that they had the second highest offensive rating for 25 years until the 2017 Warriors came along. The difference from that Lakers team is that the Bulls were stronger defensively. The numbers that they posted are Pantheon level stuff, but the argument to be made is much simpler. Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, and Horace Grant were at their athletic peak. They were all at the prime of their careers, except now they had championship experience. For many people, this was the greatest version of Michael Jordan. His athletic greatness, impeccable skill, intangibles, and IQ of the game, you can make the case that we've never seen anything better. He was at the top of his game in every single facet, and that's the type of player that was leading this team. How many teams in the history of the league can you honestly say would beat the 92 Bulls in a 7-game series playing against that version of MJ?
I'm playing for my life tonight. No question. I want Michael Jordan.
I do too.
A better competitor. LeBron is a nicer person on the court.
Yeah.
I'm serious. This is my little patented thing. I want this on my gravestone. The reason they each got to the top of the mountain, as they each have in their own eras, took Michael to learn how to share. Michael Jordan, in the 87-88 Michael Jordan, is not making those passes to Steve Kerr and Jim Paxson that later won John Paxson, that later won championships.
Then there was his running mate, who had his best season while playing alongside the MVP of the league. He recorded his highest scoring average while playing a full season with Jordan. On top of that, he finished third for the Defensive Player of the Year. Horace Grant also averaged the most points and rebounds while being a teammate of Michael. Once they raised their level of play, it was over for the rest of the league. It's true that they faced a few bumps on the road in the playoffs. Their postseason run could have been better. They went 15-7, but when they were clicking, they were scary good. They had 2 victories that were over 30 points and another 29-point victory. When they were at their best, they looked like the greatest team of all time. That's just me, but what about you all? Who do you think is the greatest team and why? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching.